You are watching the Hustle and Know Entrepreneurial Experience. We are an entrepreneurship book club moving into the podcast world. My name is Julie. I'll be your host today, and we read books relating to entrepreneurship and professional development. So joining us today, we have Joseph Warren, co-owner of Financial Planning HQ, and then we also got Shawn Townley, who is entrepreneur, consultant, speaker, and geek. So today, we are going to be discussing the book, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Oh, thanks for the cameo for the book. Perfect, that's the book we're discussing. So, without further ado, let's get started, guys. Okay, gentlemen. In one word or sentence, I know we never follow this rule. Give me your synopsis of the book. What, if you were the author, what is the main point you'd want the reader to take away from this book? Who wants to go first? Shawn, since you're the floating head in this picture, I think you're the little oracle in this theory.
It's all just a dream.
In space.
None of it's real. You are what you make of it. You can get yourself out of hell. You can be in heaven right now. Whatever they do doesn't matter. It's only what you do. What you perceive.
Okay. Thank you, oh wise one. Yes, Shawn is correct. There's a lot of main points in this book, but essentially what he's saying is we have control of our own future. We have control of how we act in situations. We have control of how we feel. We have control of everything except for how we were brought up. We can't control that. It's too late, right? But now that we're aware, we can control what we do moving forward, and it's all a choice. Hence the 4 agreements, which is what we'll make to ourselves. So, which I will tell you in a minute. But Joseph, what about you? What do you think your synopsis of the book is?
Whoa. So I had to wear my glasses, my hippie glasses, for this specifically. In one word or sentence, it's that, I guess it's like any second, similar to the dream, any second you can choose how you want to perceive the world, like sort of like you could see it through rose-colored glasses, so it's very nice. Or you could choose to see the bad in everything. And I think my main takeaway is that we're programmed just by, we're domesticated is the word he uses, like animals are domesticated, to be fearful, to avoid being true to ourselves. Like he talks about love, it's like we don't express love because we're scared to, or because it's weird or something. And he says like children are free to be more like children are. So the idea, which is way more than a sentence, is just to like choose to see the world the way it really is, like in reality, rather than putting on like incorporating all your baggage into it, like all the baggage from your past.
Okay. I kind of see you there. Don't know if I agree with that 100%, but we'll get into that, right? Okay.
I love it.
Okay, so then let's go over these 4 agreements.
Okay.
First is be impeccable with your word. Second, don't take anything personally. Third, don't make assumptions. And 4, always do your best. So, which one of these is y'all's favorite? Cricket. Go ahead, Joseph.
I think always do your best. And I think I remind myself of that, like, because he says your best can be different at different points in your life. Like if you're like in a bad mood, your best may not be like perfect, but that's something I tend to be a perfectionist sometimes. That can slow me down, like making me procrastinate and do stuff like that. But that allows me to like say, if I did my best, and that's fine, and I can like go to sleep happy, be happy with what I did, and then try again the next day. So I like that one a lot.
Mm-hmm. True. What about you, Shawn?
I can tell you which one's the hardest.
Okay, tell us.
Don't take anything personally. Someone cuts you off in traffic, it's on them, not you. It's about them. When they call you fat, they think they're fat. They're not calling you fat. This is probably the hardest one to live by. So I would say my favorite is be impeccable with your word. Everything that comes out of this pie hole gets created. I mean, it's kind of biblical, right? So, I mean, there was the word and then everything else. So anything you say becomes a reality. So you can black magic with your mouth, or you can white magic with your mouth. I think that's the coolest.
Okay. I have to agree and disagree with you there. I agree with you because that is also my favorite. His same thing, words are so powerful, and we don't even realize sometimes like how powerful they can be. Like say you're mad one day and you just say something stupid and you didn't really mean it, but you really can like hurt other people's feelings. So that's also why they say be impeccable, because you don't realize it. To you, it's no big deal, but to others, you could have just changed their whole trajectory in their lives. So for example, one of the examples he said in the book was that there was this little girl. She was probably like, I don't know, like 10 years old or something. She was just in a good mood, just singing around in her house. And her mom just had a horrible day at work. And she like was just had a huge headache and was annoyed that the daughter was singing. And she just said, "Stop singing. You have a horrible singing voice." And that daughter took it. And from then on, the rest of her life, she basically was like afraid of singing because she's like felt so bad about herself. When in reality, the mother didn't mean that. She would have thought any noise was the most annoying noise in the world at the time. She just had a bad day. But that's what he's saying is like she the person that loved her the most, her mother, is the one that ended up impacting her and making her essentially have very low self-esteem, because we don't think sometimes and we just say things. So that one's my favorite because I think it's like super extremely powerful. I do have a hot take on that though, because he says in the book that we can't fault people like that. We can't fault them because they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't mean it. So we must forgive them. And I'm like, just kidding. To me, I'm like, someone's mean, they did it on purpose. But then I guess that also goes back to don't taking it personally. But what I disagree,
even if you're 8 years old, don't take it personally. Damn it.
I know, just tell them. 8-year-old girl, don't take it personally.
Cut it out.
I know. But what I think is the hardest one, in my opinion, Shawn, which is what I disagreed with you about, I think the hardest one is don't make assumptions.
You know what make an assumption does? Assuming?
Yeah, assuming. Like, just assuming that everything's going to be fine in life. Nothing bad's going to happen to you. Assuming anything. Assuming I'm going to go in today and my day is going to be X, Y, Z. And then next thing you know, like, shit hits the fan. Like, you're assuming, you know, it's going to be slow or whatever. And then it's total opposite and it throws you for a loop. Not that one's a little bit of a mild example of like how assuming, but some things could be super worse. And I have this story going along with this. This was not a story from the book, by the way. This was just, I had heard this like on a podcast like years ago from someone who said like basically the key to happiness and the key to like a happy life is to not make any assumptions. And I'm just all like, how do you not do that? And he gave an example of how, and I think it was this guy that it happened to, but basically his son ended up getting sick. I don't remember if it was cancer or what, something happened to him and he ended up passing away. And so he obviously was miserable and devastated But when you think about it, he had assumed that his child was going to live like a long, happy life and surpass his years. So by making that assumption, he basically made himself sad and depressed because he assumed what essentially is not a guarantee, which is life in day-to-day life. But it's like, how are you supposed to do that? How are you supposed to not assume that I'm not going to die tomorrow? You know what I mean? So that's the kind of stuff, like when catastrophic things happen, like how are you supposed to not assume everything's going to be fine? That's why I think that one's the hardest, personally. Because I mean, and that's maybe just me, I don't take things personally really anymore. Because it's like, you're a stranger off the street, like who are you? You know what I mean? If somebody says something. So yeah, that's just my little spiel there. Yeah. Okay, so tell us what you liked best about the book and what you disliked about the book. I just talked a lot, so it's one of you guys' turn. Shawn, how about you this time? I'll tag team off of you guys.
You know, it's pretty straightforward. It's like eat right and exercise. I mean, we know the recipe for a happy life. And knowing the recipe and following the recipe is two different things. So what I like about this book is it's short, sweet, and to the point. I like that. I mean, it gets in, it gets out. 4 agreements. And the onus is on you, right? There's nothing left to chance or anybody else. You can't necessarily change what's in the world, but you can change how you react to the world. Always be your best. Don't assume, because it makes an ass out of you and me, right? Take nothing personally and always spread joy with your word. If you can do that, you're going to have a very happy life. You're going to have heaven on earth, as he said. This is bringing happiness before there's any wants. And it costs you nothing. You just have to believe in yourself, invest in yourself, and bring your best to the world.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Of course, it's all easier said than done. But it's apparently...
Most of the time it is.
Okay, Joseph, what about you?
Yes. What I like best, I agree, I like that it's short. I like the structure and how it's all tied together, though I think that's probably what I like best, is be impeccable with your word, ties into the next one, which is don't take anything personally, because it's kind of showing like this 2 sides to it. Like words can be very powerful, but at the same time, you can choose how to react to it. Just because someone says something like I'm just thinking of a random insult, like you're an idiot or something. If you choose to accept that, then you're saying that that's a part of your story. And yeah, I am an idiot. If it affects you in any way. So that's it. That ties into the part about words being powerful. And then don't make assumptions is also the same thing. It's like we create all these stories in our head, but if we don't ask people about them, anything, then we're kind of like just living in la la land. And it's not true. So we want to seek out truth. And then finally, try your best ties into like, okay, we're not perfect and we may mess up on being impeccable with our word. I may say something inadvertently and offends Shawn or Julie or something. And that doesn't mean I'm the worst person in the world. It just means like, I'm going to forgive myself. So it's like, I don't know. I just like the way it's all like synergized together, the whole structure of it. And I think the main point, now going back to my first answer, is just like, truth is beautiful. Just accept truth for what it is and try to get as close to that truth as you possibly can. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of what I see is like, these words are symbols of how we describe the world. And you can create with it bad things or good things. The example of the bad, of course, would be like Hitler or something. And good would be like maybe Gandhi, you know, or Jesus, right? So yeah, I think it's all about like really going after what the truth is and that it's a good thing to do that.
Mm-hmm. True, but what do you say about people who don't want to know the truth?
Well, they're creating problems for themselves in their lives. So you're creating unnecessary suffering because the truth is, it just is. It doesn't care if you want to know about it or not. So they're creating unnecessary suffering for themselves and for others.
Mm-hmm. So you don't think they can just live in their own la la land world? You're saying eventually it's going to catch up to them?
I'm saying you're distracting yourself from something that's beautiful, which is like all of nature, all of existence, from if you're not seeking the truth. And whether it's good or bad, like you were talking about someone whose son died, and you could live by these rules and then bad things could happen to you, right? Like horrible things can happen to you. And I think it would be natural to be sad. I don't think the author or anyone would say like, don't be sad about that. Like you were assuming, I don't mean to like joke, but you were assuming like something, but what was I going to say? But yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's just like doing the best. Like that goes back to doing your best, right? Like for him, that would be the best at that point in time. Of course you're sad because something really tragic happened in your life. And just do the best that you can with that and take care of yourself. And it'll, like all things will pass, you know, like any.
But it's even beyond that. It's doing your best at whatever level you're at right then. So
yeah,
if you're hungover, do your best, right? At making the day work. If you ate your Wheaties, do the best when you go out for your gold medal. I mean, you know, wherever you are, it's giving the positive energy that you have right then. Because it could be the end of the day, you have no, you know, self-worth and all that kind of stuff, but you still have to push through and do your best at that point, whatever level of energy you have at that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that one definitely just breeds self-confidence in general. Like if you're half-assing everything that you do in life, you're just going to have a half-assed life, and that's not going to make you feel good about yourself either.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another way to look at it.
And you're wasting energy.
Yeah, you're wasting energy time. There's no point. So did y'all say anything that you disliked about the book? I think y'all just said positives.
Yeah.
There was some pretty middle school wording in this book. Somebody says you're fat. Don't, you know, someone says you're stupid. You know, I mean, it was, okay, dude, we could have maybe talked a little bit more complex in this book, but, you know, maybe short sentences is your deal. It was a little bit insulting at some level, but that's, I shouldn't take anything personally, so maybe that was the point.
Yeah. Well, and also you're assuming that you are his type of audience, a highly educated individual. And, you know, a lot of younger people who are, you know, 10 years old could be reading this book. And
evidently 8-year-olds still get their feelings hurt.
Exactly. This little 8-year-old, you know, could be reading it and someone could be calling her fat and like you're disregarding it. Why is she taking it personal? Don't assume anything, Shawn.
I'm done assuming.
Just had to grill you there a little bit. Just kidding. Okay, so Joseph, what did you not like?
It's hard to say. This is like, I think it's probably one of my favorite books that we've read this year. It's really hard to say something, but there has to be something. There was a part where he was talking about times that he's offended other people. And I could kind of read that like the actual author was talking about like, oh, maybe I was a bad husband at that point in time, or I said something that hurt someone. And I don't think from a personal point of view, if someone tells you that you hurt them, that you should put up a wall and be like, well, you need to learn to like not take it personally. Because I feel like that could be taken to the wrong direction. Say like I'm being a jerk and someone is offended by it. Even if I wasn't trying to be or it wasn't my intention, it could still be a nicer thing to do to be like, well, why do you feel that way? Because that's not what I meant at all. And try to ease their pain instead of just being like, deal with it, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because there was a point in here where he was talking, I think it was in the context of a relationship or a marriage, where he offended someone as an example. And he was saying like, that's on them. Like he's playing like the cool guy, like me with the glasses and saying like, no, that's not my problem. But I feel like it's not your problem, but you should be as kind as you can in those situations. And you never know what someone's been through. So, you know, if you offend someone, just try to like help them out, be kind, and yeah.
Yeah. And I think he was taking it literally. So like when he says like, don't take anything personally, he says, you know, don't even take compliments either. Like someone gives you a compliment, it's not personal. And it's like, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with that either, because, you know, you can get compliments from close friends. Like that would be kind of personal because they're a close friend. You know what I mean? So I guess that's something I would disagree with.
You could become reliant on them. I think that's the thing, is like, I need the validation from others. Like, I need someone to tell me I did great.
Maybe, but then it just like goes back to like what you were saying. So it's like, okay, I'm not supposed to take, like, if someone calls me fat, okay, whatever, not personal. But if someone gives me a compliment, not personal. But if I choose what to accept and what to not accept, am I now not living in truth, like you were saying, Joseph?
Interesting. Yeah. Is that, okay, that's a good question. So if you're like to choose like, oh, okay, I'm not stupid, but I may be like, I don't know, I'm well-read, so they're right about that. Like, you just chose to take the compliments, but you ignored all the negative.
Yeah.
That actually sounds like fun. But I would say the thing is that either way, you're giving people power over you. So like someone, like I could just be like, it could almost be a manipulation tactic to be overly fawning of people. And that flattery is like the form, like flattery is something that people use sometimes. Like with kings and stuff, there's always been like someone who was trying to flatter him because he wanted to be the king himself. So I would just say take it with a grain of salt, because, and it can also be taken away too as a form of power. Like, now I need your validation. Now I need you have control over me.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's a great way to explain it, Joseph. Thank you for that. Okay. So let's see. Something that I disagree with. Not really much. I did really, really love this book, or something that I dislike. So something funny, I guess, that I was thinking of, because as he was saying, like at the beginning, you know, you don't control where you were born, who your parents are, how you were grown up, what language you speak, like those circumstances you don't control. But essentially, like, how we live on a day-to-day basis, the outside world tells us how we should live and act, how we need to be respectable human beings in society, yada, 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 how we should dress, whatever. So basically he's saying, you know, you need to be your own person. Don't give the power to anybody. You're your own power, right? And I've been watching the Dave Chappelle show on Netflix lately.
Respect.
And side note, he's hilarious. But there was like this skit that he was saying, because he also deals with like a lot about like race and stuff. But one of his skits was like talking about how, like, it was like, you be real, right? Be real, be really you, but in the workplace. So like, he ends up getting this job at an office, like with a bunch of white people. And then he's all acting respectable. Yeah, great job on the report, Randy, yada, yada, yada. And then they're like, but when to be real or not? And then he's like, yo, and he like goes off saying like, why are you talking to me like that? Or whatever. And just being like all obnoxious. And he's like, see, and then he talks about how like that character that he played ended up working at like a gas station and like lost everything. And it's like, okay, example A, like when you should not always be real. Like,
that's when keeping it real goes wrong.
Fired. Huh?
That's when keeping it real goes wrong. I remember.
Yes, when keeping it real goes wrong. Yeah. I'm sorry, it was really funny. You'll have to watch it. But point being is like, yeah, in a sense, like I do agree with him. Like, you can't always just act like whatever you want and say whatever you want. Like, you can't say bomb on a plane. You know, it's like we technically still need to be acting like some sort of regular people in society and not all crazy. Otherwise, you will go to jail for public indecency or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah, go ahead, Joseph.
But that would be like almost like black magic to go on a plane and just be like, bomb. Wouldn't it be? Because you're going to cause a bunch of chaos and confusion and fear in most cases.
But what if you actually did have a bomb on the plane that you put there? So technically it's the truth.
In that case, you're actually doing something good.
I'm going to say, point of order, what the hell are you going to do about it on a plane anyway? You're dead. You're done.
You're done, kid.
Yeah, well, because you were saying like,
but he was truthful.
Yeah, he was like, what?
And they should not take it personally. He goes so far as to say if someone puts a gun to your head,
they shouldn't have assumed.
Don't take it personally.
Take it personally.
Yeah. They shouldn't assume the flight was going to be like a safe flight. No one.
I'm pretty sure I'm not being impeccable with my word at that point, though.
True.
I might be doing my best, though.
Okay. Yeah, that's funny. See, okay, so this is just, some hot takes that we were getting into, like what if scenarios.
Point of order.
We're thinking way too deep into this, guys. I don't think that's what he was trying to relay. Let's see.
I think we've gone longer than the book at this point.
The audiobook.
Maybe. That is definitely a positive that, it's a shorter book. But another thing that I really liked, and this is something that I've already applied in my life, like my whole life, was he says, like, don't ever be afraid to, like, ask for clarification. Because same thing, don't assume anything, right? It's always better to ask questions. Assumptions set us up for suffering.
Yeah.
And I just remembered, like, when I was younger and I was in dance class, and it was like me and a bunch of little girls dancing, and I would see across the room that like someone was doing the move wrong. I would go to the teacher. I'd say, teacher, how do you do this step or this move? Like, can you show us the part again? And then she would do it, and then that person would fix their problem.
Aw, that's sweet.
So,
yeah.
Point being, I mean, I guess I technically assumed that I was right, but I was right. But point being is I wasn't going to call someone else out on it. Like, I asked for clarification. So
they call that passive aggressive, Julie.
Is that passive aggressive though? Because it's not like I ever had attitude towards anybody. It was all in my head.
It's exactly what it means.
The exact textbook definition.
Okay, but the point is though, is that
you were right, but you weren't mean about it. That's what you're saying.
Don't be mean about it though. I wasn't impeccable with my word. I wasn't saying you're a bad dancer. Fix your crap stuff. I didn't do any of that. I just asked for clarification.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, Julie.
This was a long time ago.
Right. You don't ever do that anymore, so it's totally cool now.
No, but even throughout my whole career, like I always ask questions, just in general, like in the workplace, because I don't want to be working on an assignment and then like ask an hour later, like, oh, you did the whole thing wrong. Now you have to redo it. Like, it's just unproductive in general.
I thought Julie was the girl in high school and college you wanted to do a project with because she would just take care of it and you could take credit.
Yeah.
That's true.
I was the nerd in like high school and college, always trying to get like good grades. And
I didn't want to assume.
I'm
glad you told me, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm impeccable with my word. I'm telling you how it is. Okay. Anyways, what is something that you learned from this book that you didn't know before? And give me an example of how you're going to apply it to your life.
John Lennon.
John Lennon. Okay, go ahead, Justin.
John Lennon is, I think, I can't do the accent. I'll start being nicer to Ringo, I think, because I read this book. Okay, so it's my second time reading it, and the second time, what stuck out to me, or what I've been struggling with personally, is don't take anything personally. And that's a recent thing. I think I go through different moods, right? And like right now, it's been a thing where I was like, what do you mean by that? Like, seriously, why'd you call me John Lennon, Shawn? What do you mean by that? No, I'm just kidding. But you know, you get caught up taking things personally and reading too much into them. Sometimes like it can be due to stress and stuff like that. So it takes some reminding to remember that nobody really knows you except yourself. Like Julie knows parts of me, right? Julie has an idea of me, but Julie doesn't know enough that she can say like, oh, Joseph, this is you to a T. This is you're this thing. And yeah, so you can't let anyone have that power over you. So I think don't take anything personally when it comes to both sides. Compliments and insults too, which happen from time to time sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, like he said, that one's super important, and that you should even put that agreement on your fridge and practice it all the time. So I challenge you to do that too.
Put it on my fridge. I'll do it.
And your mirror.
I'll write it in lipstick. In the mirror.
Do it. Okay, Shawn, what about you?
Just for the record, John Lennon is my favorite Beatle, but without Paul McCartney, you know.
That's irrelevant, Joseph. You can't take compliments.
Yes. Yoko said the same thing.
I will. I won't assume that any book club meeting is going to go well anymore. I mean, I'm gonna. I think assuming things is difficult. I mean, as a parent, I would feel horrible. That is one of my biggest fears, is that something happens to one of my kids. So, you know, I think about that stuff, and you know, sometimes assuming things can be detrimental to your state of mind, but you shouldn't do it. So that's going to be the biggest challenge. And so I will take away from this book and try not to assume I understand what the next day, year, decade, century will be.
Mm-hmm. And you said that one was going to be the hardest one for you. Oh, no, the personal one was the hardest one. But like you said, as a parent, that one's going to be pretty difficult. So that's a good challenge for you. I like it. Okay, for me, he said that, like, as humans, we tend to suffer like guilt and punishment a lot, and true justice is paying once for every mistake. So generally we pay thousands of times. Like every time you remember something that you did, we punish ourselves over and over again, like feeling guilty, like why did I do that, whatever. And so we punish ourselves over and over rather than just punishing us once and then moving on. So I am going to apply that, because I tend to like feel guilty only like if I sleep in all weekend, or like late on the weekend. It's not all weekend, but I'll sleep in late and I'll tell myself I'm going to wake up at a decent time and be productive, and then I'll sleep in and then I'll feel guilty about it. And it's a cycle. So that's just like one small little thing. But in general, for any little thing, like, oh, probably shouldn't have drove like that, my bad, like, and then I feel guilty. I'm not that bad of a driver, people. It's fine.
I was just thinking that I can't assume that you are a good driver anymore. So
I guess that's true. We shouldn't assume anything. I shouldn't even assume that I'm a good or bad driver. I'm just a driver.
Just a driver. We're all humans.
We're all humans. So point being, though, is that, you know, I can tend to feel guilty like way longer than necessary. So I need to just be like, okay, you made a mistake, acknowledge it, get better from it, move on, and not dwell on it. Because you're also wasting precious life. Or I'd be like creating my own hell on earth by like dwelling on it, on something that I can't change other than just accepting it and learning from it. So that's something that I'm going to apply. Awesome. Well, is there any other last tidbit we want to tell the audience about checking the book out? Anything?
I like it a lot. I would give it a really high score. One of my favorites that we've read this year. And to Julie, to encourage you, I would say, let it go, man. Let it go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, bro. I'm trying to see if there's any other little tidbits. But I think we covered the biggest ones. The only other thing I guess I would say is, he says, our biggest fear is being alive and not death. You don't fear death. You're dead. What does that do? It's harder living. It's taking the risk to be alive and to express who we really are without feeling the need we're going to be judged. Like, just being ourselves is the biggest fear of humans. And we're not happy with ourselves because we don't fit our own image of perfection. So that is really like an eye-opener and a little bit of a recap of everything that we discussed. It's not about what anybody else thinks. It's about what we think, and we create our own reality, what we choose to accept and what we don't. Whatever comment somebody tells us, if we accept that, we're giving them control over our reality. We shouldn't. Hence the 4 agreements, making these agreements with ourselves to be better and be happy. So thank you, everybody, for watching and or listening to our session. You can find more about the author in the description and where to check out the book and all of the details like that. And check us out next time. And don't forget, hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle. Bye. We'll see you next time.